A diamond in the dust. Eleanor tapped a manicured nail against the society pages, the rustle of newsprint a pathetic counterpoint to the tempest brewing inside her. Another debutante ball, another charity luncheon featuring hats that looked like upturned bird nests, another article detailing the extravagant vacation of someone she vaguely knew. It was all so utterly, suffocatingly predictable. She tossed the paper onto the chaise lounge, the motion as listless as her spirit. The gilt edges of the room seemed to mock her, the silk wallpaper a constant reminder of the gilded cage she inhabited. Her gaze drifted towards the discarded newspaper, now crumpled on the plush velvet. Something caught her eye, a stark black-and-white rectangle amidst the swirling calligraphy of social announcements. Governess wanted, the small advertisement declared. Family Ranch, West Texas. Must be experienced with children, horses a plus. Inquire Box 27B. Texas. Horses. Children who presumably didn't wear miniature top hats. The words resonated within her, a discordant chord in the symphony of her life. It was absurd, of course. Eleanor Ainsworth, daughter of a railroad magnate, raising children on a dusty ranch? Preposterous. Yet she found herself reaching for the discarded newspaper, smoothing the crumpled page. The scent of ink and newsprint filled her nostrils, a strangely appealing aroma compared to the cloying sweetness of the lilies perfuming the room. She read the advertisement again, each word a tiny spark igniting a flicker of longing. An idea, audacious and exhilarating, began to bloom in her mind. A chance to escape, to reinvent herself, to finally do something that mattered beyond attending galas and selecting china patterns. She sat at her antique writing desk, the polished surface reflecting her determined expression. It wouldn't do to submit a letter on Ainsworth stationery. Too easily traced. She rummaged through a drawer, unearthing a stack of plain, unadorned paper she'd once purchased for a thank-you note to a distant aunt. Perfect. Now the name. Eleanor Ainsworth wouldn't survive 5 minutes on a Texas ranch. She needed someone simpler, someone less burdened by expectation. Her gaze fell upon a small, silver-framed photograph of her grandmother, Eleanor's namesake. Everyone had called her Ellie. Ellie, she whispered, testing the name on her tongue. It felt lighter, less weighty than Eleanor. Ellie something. She pondered for a moment, then seized upon a surname she'd seen etched on a tombstone during a recent, begrudging visit to the family plot, Moore. Ellie Moore. Yes, it had a certain ring to it. The letter practically wrote itself. She emphasized her supposed experience with children, gleaned mostly from observing her younger cousins during obligatory holiday visits. She fabricated a fondness for horses, recalling a single, terrifying pony ride she'd endured as a child. She even managed to conjure a convincing backstory about growing up on a small farm in upstate New York, a farm that existed only in her imagination. She addressed the envelope, careful to use a plain, unassuming font. She would mail it herself, far from the prying eyes of the household staff. The next few days were a whirlwind of clandestine activity. She haunted the less frequented corners of department stores, purchasing sturdy, practical clothing that bore no resemblance to the designer gowns hanging in her closet. Denim jeans, cotton shirts, and a pair of well-worn boots that looked as though they'd already seen a lifetime of ranch work. Packing was a strategic exercise in deception. She couldn't simply disappear with a mountain of luggage. One large, unassuming suitcase, purchased from a discount shop, would have to suffice. She filled it with the new clothes, a few essential toiletries, and a handful of books, chosen more for their weight and size than their literary merit. She tucked a small, leather-bound journal into the side pocket, a silent promise to record her adventures or misadventures as the case may be. The farewell note was the hardest. She couldn't explain, not really. Not without sounding completely unhinged. She opted for a vague, yet hopefully reassuring message. Dearest mother and father, she wrote, her hand trembling slightly. I need some time away. Please don't worry. I will be in touch soon. With love, Eleanor. She propped the note against her jewelry box, a small act of defiance against the suffocating expectations that had always defined her. The escape itself was surprisingly easy. She slipped out of the house early one morning, before the household staff was fully awake, hailed a taxi, and directed the driver to the nearest bus station. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, she glanced back at the imposing mansion, a monument to her gilded existence. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her, relief, exhilaration, and a pang of guilt. At the bus station, surrounded by strangers with their own stories etched on their faces, she felt a strange sense of anonymity, a welcome liberation from the scrutiny of her social circle. She purchased a ticket to a small town several hours west, a town that served as a gateway to the vast expanse of Texas. As the bus rumbled along the highway, leaving behind the manicured lawns and predictable routines of her former life, Eleanor Ainsworth ceased to exist. In her place sat Ellie Moore, a woman with a fabricated past and an uncertain future, heading towards a dusty ranch and the promise of something real. The vast, open sky stretched before her, mirroring the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. She clutched her worn suitcase, a diamond in the rough, ready to embrace the dust. Welcome to the Double Diamond. The bus coughed her out onto the sun-baked shoulder of a road that seemed to stretch to the very edge of the world. Dust devils danced in the distance, mocking her city-softened lungs. This was it. The Double Diamond Ranch. According to the crumpled directions clutched in her sweaty hand, it was another 5 miles down this desolate stretch. Before she could even consider walking, a battered Ford pickup truck rattled to a stop beside her. The driver, a man who seemed carved from the same hardscrabble landscape, squinted at her through narrowed eyes. "You Ellie Moore?" His voice was a low rumble like distant thunder. Ellie swallowed, forcing a confident smile she didn't feel. "Yes, Mr. Johnson?" He grunted, a sound that could have meant anything. "Caleb. And get in. Don't have all day?" Caleb Johnson was taller than she'd imagined, his frame lean and wiry. A weathered Stetson shadowed his face, but she could see the deep lines etched around his eyes, testament to sun and wind and time. He exuded an air of quiet strength, an untamed quality that both intimidated and intrigued her. The truck smelled of leather, dust, and something indefinably masculine. Ellie gripped the worn seat as they bounced along the dirt road, the silence broken only by the growl of the engine and the occasional squawk of a passing hawk. She risked a glance at Caleb, but his gaze was fixed on the horizon, his expression unreadable. The ranch appeared suddenly, a cluster of buildings huddled against the vastness of the land. A sprawling, single-story house, a barn weathered to a silvery gray, corrals, and outbuildings all bathed in the relentless Texas sun. It was both beautiful and daunting. As the truck pulled to a stop, a small figure darted out of the house, her blonde pigtails bouncing. "Papa." Caleb's face softened as he hopped out of the truck. "Hey, Squirt. This is Miss Moore, your new governess." Lily Johnson, all of 7 years old, peered at Ellie with open curiosity, her blue eyes assessing. She was small for her age, but there was a sharpness to her gaze that belied her youthful appearance. She wore denim overalls and scuffed cowboy boots, a miniature version of her father. "She doesn't look like a governess," Lily stated matter-of-factly. Ellie, acutely aware of her ill-fitting jeans and borrowed boots, felt her carefully constructed facade begin to crumble. "Well, I'm here to help you with your lessons and things." Lily continued to stare, her scrutiny unnerving. "Can you ride a horse?" Before Ellie could answer, Caleb intervened. "Lily, that's enough. Miss Moore just got here. Why don't you show her to her room?" He gave Ellie a look that seemed to say, "Welcome to my world." The room was small and sparsely furnished, but clean. A narrow bed, a scarred wooden dresser, and a single window overlooking the dusty corral. It was a far cry from her silk-draped bedroom in Boston, but it was hers. "Papa says I have to be nice to you," Lily announced, leaning against the doorframe. "But I don't like governesses." "I'm sure we'll get along just fine," Ellie said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "My mama used to read me stories," Lily continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you know any good stories?" The mention of Lily's mother hung in the air, a palpable absence. Ellie hesitated, suddenly realizing the depth of the loss this little girl had experienced. "I know lots of stories," she said gently. "Maybe I can tell you one later." Lily nodded, a flicker of something that might have been hope in her eyes. Then, just as quickly, the wary look returned. "Papa wants you to help with the chores. He says everyone has to pull their weight." Chores? Of course. What had she been expecting? Tea parties and embroidery lessons. Caleb found her struggling with a pitchfork in the barn, the smell of manure thick in the air. Mucking out stalls was proving to be significantly more challenging than she'd anticipated. Her hands were already blistered and her back ached. He watched her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "You ever done that before, Miss Moore?" Ellie straightened, trying to maintain her composure. "Of course," she lied, wiping a stray strand of hair from her face, leaving a smudge of dirt on her cheek. He raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "Here, let me show you." He took the pitchfork from her, demonstrating the proper technique with effortless grace. The muscles in his arms flexed as he tossed a forkful of manure into the wheelbarrow. Ellie watched, feeling utterly inept. She traded silks for denim, but she was still a fish out of water. This wasn't a game. This was real life, hard and unforgiving. "Thanks," she mumbled, taking the pitchfork back. Caleb just nodded, his eyes holding a hint of something she couldn't quite decipher. Pity? Amusement? Or something else entirely? "Welcome to the Double Diamond, Miss Moore." The words were polite, but the tone suggested anything but welcome. Learning the ropes. The smoke alarm shrieked, a banshee wail echoing through the high-ceilinged kitchen. Ellie frantically waved a tea towel at the offending appliance, tears stinging her eyes. A charred, unrecognizable mass sat in the cast-iron skillet, emitting a pungent odor that permeated every corner of the house. "Everything all right in here?" Caleb's voice, laced with a hint of amusement, cut through the din. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his presence somehow amplifying Ellie's mortification. Lily peeked from behind his legs, her expression a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I was trying to make dinner," Ellie stammered, gesturing weakly at the blackened remains. "I thought I could manage a simple pot roast," but Caleb chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "Pot roast ain't exactly simple, Miss Moore. Especially on a stove like this one. It's hotter than a branding iron." He stepped forward, effortlessly removing the skillet from the burner. "Tell you what, why don't you let me handle supper tonight? You can help me with the salad." Ellie readily agreed, relief washing over her. She watched, humbled, as Caleb expertly navigated the unfamiliar kitchen, his movements efficient and purposeful. He chopped vegetables with a practiced hand, his silence a comfortable contrast to the earlier chaos. Lily, captivated, perched on a stool, swinging her legs and peppering him with questions about the cattle. Later, after a surprisingly delicious meal of grilled steak and fresh greens, Caleb announced, "Tomorrow, Miss Moore, we're going to get you properly acquainted with a horse." The thought filled Ellie with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She'd ridden a pony once at a fair, but that hardly qualified her for navigating the vast Texas landscape. The next morning dawned bright and clear. The air smelled of dry earth and sagebrush. Caleb led Ellie to the stables, where a gentle-looking mare with a flaxen mane stood patiently. "This is Belle," he said, stroking the horse's neck. "She's got a good temperament. Perfect for beginners." Ellie approached cautiously, extending a hand for Belle to sniff. The mare nuzzled her palm, and Ellie felt a surge of affection. Caleb patiently explained the basics, how to mount, how to hold the reins, how to communicate with the horse. He emphasized the importance of balance and posture, his voice calm and encouraging. "All right, let's see you try," he said, after demonstrating the proper technique. Ellie's first attempt was clumsy. She fumbled with the stirrup, her movements awkward and uncertain. Caleb, without a word of criticism, offered gentle corrections. "Relax your shoulders, Miss Moore. Let your body move with the horse. Feel her rhythm." It took several tries, but eventually Ellie managed to mount Belle. She gripped the reins tightly, her heart pounding in her chest. Caleb led them around the corral, his hand resting lightly on Belle's bridle. "That's it," he said, his voice low and steady. "Just breathe and trust the horse." As Ellie grew more comfortable, Caleb gradually increased the pace. They moved from a walk to a trot and finally to a slow canter. The wind whipped through Ellie's hair, and the vast expanse of the ranch stretched out before her. For the first time since arriving, she felt a sense of freedom, a connection to the land and its raw beauty. Lily watched them from the fence, her initial skepticism replaced by a flicker of curiosity. When Ellie dismounted, flushed and triumphant, Lily approached hesitantly. "Can I ride Belle too?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Caleb smiled. "Of course you can, Lilybug. But first, we need to make sure Miss Moore is properly settled for the night." That evening, after Lily was tucked into bed, Ellie found her gazing out the window at the inky sky, speckled with a million stars. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Ellie said, joining her. Lily nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mama used to tell me stories about the stars. She said each one was a tiny angel watching over us." Ellie's heart ached for the little girl's loss. She sat beside her on the window seat, pulling a soft blanket around them. "I know some stories too," Ellie said softly. "Would you like to hear one?" Lily nodded eagerly. Ellie began to weave a tale of celestial creatures and faraway galaxies, of brave star sailors and shimmering moonbeams. She spoke of constellations that danced across the sky, of planets made of pure light, and of comets that carried wishes to the edge of the universe. She told of unicorns with coats of stardust and Pegasus with wings of pure moonlight. As she spoke, she watched Lily's face light up. The sadness in her eyes seemed to fade, replaced by a spark of imagination. Ellie's stories filled the void left by her mother's absence, offering a glimpse of magic and wonder in a world that had suddenly become very bleak. The ranch, for all its challenges, was also a place where new constellations could be charted. City Slicker arrives. Before the dust from Ellie's lesson could settle, a black town car, polished to an obsidian sheen, announced itself with a crunch on the gravel drive. Its arrival, so alien against the ranch's time-worn buildings and parched earth, even stirred the horses from their afternoon grazing. Ears flicked, sensing something amiss. Caleb, repairing a fence near the barn, paused, squinting against the glare. An unwelcome tightening gripped his gut. Strangers here rarely heralded good tidings. The driver's door opened, revealing a man assembled of sharp angles and tailored precision. Sterling. His shoes, reflecting the sky-like miniature lakes, seemed to disapprove of every speck of dust. After adjusting his pristine cuffs, a gold watch flashed. He cast a calculating gaze over the double diamond, the expansive fields, the aging barn, the unpretentious house. "Mr. Johnson?" His voice, smooth as aged bourbon, held an undercurrent of flint. "That's me," Caleb replied, his tone rough-hewn. He didn't offer a hand. Sterling offered his anyway, a gesture less of courtesy than claim. Sterling Investments. The smile he offered was all teeth, no warmth. "We need to talk." A nod towards the house sufficed. Caleb, after a brief hesitation, led the way, his boots stirring up puffs of dry earth. Lily, engrossed with Ellie near the porch, received a quick, silent message in Caleb's gaze. Inside, Caleb gestured towards the threadbare armchair. Sterling remained upright, seemingly unwilling to bridge the distance to the ranch's humble comforts. "Let's be blunt, Mr. Johnson," Sterling began, his voice echoing softly in the room's stillness. "Sterling Investments is developing a resort complex in this locale. We've secured nearly all the surrounding properties. Your ranch, the Double Diamond, is key to our strategy." Silence stretched. Sterling extracted a hefty document from his briefcase. "We are prepared to make a generous offer for your land. Substantially above market value, naturally." The sum he quoted stole Caleb's breath. It was a lifeline for Lily's future, a means to bury old debts, a chance to finally mend the perpetually leaking roof. Temptation battled with a deeper, more primal connection. Caleb pictured his father, his grandfather, each man having bled and sweated into this very soil. He saw Lily, running free in the fields, her joyful calls carried on the wind. "This ranch has been in my family for generations, Mr. Sterling," Caleb said quietly. With an impatient wave, Sterling dismissed that notion. "Sentiment is an indulgence few can afford, Mr. Johnson. This is a business arrangement. An opportunity to ensure your family's well-being in ways ranching simply cannot." He left the document on the table, a siren song etched in paper, a gilded cage disguised as opportunity. "Consider it. The offer is good for 1 week. I trust you will make the sensible choice." He pivoted and returned to the waiting car, its ebony surface reflecting the fading afternoon light. Caleb watched as it sped away, leaving a trail of swirling dust in its wake. He lifted the document, its weight pressing down in his hand. Later, after Lily was asleep, Caleb joined Ellie on the porch, where the night held only the chorus of crickets. He showed her the document, the numbers blurring before her eyes. "What will you do?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Caleb sighed, raking a hand through his hair. "It's a fortune, Ellie. It could change everything." He gazed out at the darkening fields, at the silhouettes of the horses in their slumber. "But this land, it's more than just acreage. It's everything." He turned to Ellie, his eyes searching. "What do you think I should do?" Ellie studied the web of worry etched around his eyes, the heavy mantle of responsibility he wore. She pictured Lily, her spirit blossoming anew on the ranch. She remembered the sense of belonging she herself had discovered here, a world away from the hollow beauty of her past. "I can't decide for you, Caleb," she said honestly. "But I know some things are worth more than money." Whispers of doubt. The ledger lay open on the kitchen table, its columns of figures illuminated by the warm glow of the overhead light. Caleb ran a calloused hand through his hair, the gesture heavy with frustration. "It's bleedin' dry, Ellie. I've cut costs where I can, but the price of beef's down, feeds up. It's a losing battle." Ellie leaned closer, her brow furrowed in concentration. She'd spent the better part of the afternoon poring over his accounts, a skill honed from years spent navigating the complexities of her family's business empire. "Caleb, have you considered diversifying? Agritourism is booming, especially in areas with historical significance like this." He scoffed, pushing back his chair. "Tourists? Tramplin' over my cattle? I can't see it. It wouldn't have to be intrusive. Think about it. Weekend horseback riding lessons, guided tours of the ranch, even a small bed and breakfast in the renovated bunkhouse. It could supplement your income and preserve the ranch's heritage. Ellie tapped a pen against the ledger. And what about government grants for land conservation? There are programs that offer financial assistance to ranchers who implement sustainable practices. Caleb stared at her, a flicker of something akin to hope in his eyes. You know a lot about this stuff, Ellie. More than a governess should. She offered a small, self-deprecating smile. I read a lot. It was a half-truth, a carefully constructed shield against the probing questions she feared. The next morning, Mr. Sterling arrived, his polished shoes crunching on the gravel drive. He exuded an air of effortless superiority, his tailored suit a stark contrast to Caleb's worn denim and flannel. He was all smiles and handshakes, but Ellie caught the glint of steel in his eyes as he greeted her. Miss Moore, he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. Caleb tells me you've been helping him with the ranch's finances. Quite the multi-talented governess. Ellie met his gaze, refusing to be intimidated. I'm simply offering a fresh perspective, Mr. Sterling. This ranch is more than just land, it's a legacy. He chuckled, a low, condescending sound. Legacy doesn't pay the bills, Miss Moore. Sentimentality is a luxury few can afford. He turned to Caleb, clapping him on the shoulder. Have you given our offer any more thought, Caleb? We're prepared to be generous. Later that afternoon, as Lily practiced her reading in the parlor, Ellie found herself alone with Mr. Sterling on the porch. The air hung thick with unspoken tension. Tell me, Miss Moore, he began, his voice deceptively casual, where did you acquire such sophisticated financial knowledge? Ellie paused, carefully choosing her words. I took some business courses at community college. It seemed practical. He raised a skeptical eyebrow. Community college? Somehow I imagined a more prestigious institution. He leaned closer, his gaze piercing. You don't quite strike me as the average governess, Miss Moore. There's a certain polish about you. Ellie forced a smile. Perhaps that's just good manners, Mr. Sterling. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps. But I've built my career on trusting my instincts, and my instincts tell me there's more to you than meets the eye. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. I always make it a point to know who I'm dealing with. It avoids unpleasant surprises. That evening, after Lily was asleep and Caleb was out checking on a calving cow, Ellie sat at the kitchen table, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. Sterling's words echoed in her mind, a chilling reminder of the precariousness of her new life. She knew he wouldn't let it go. Meanwhile, miles away in a brightly lit office, Mr. Sterling tapped a name into a computer, Eleanor Ainsworth. The search engine whirred, and a cascade of images and articles flooded the screen. Eleanor Ainsworth, heiress, philanthropist, business mogul. He scrolled through the results, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Miss Moore, he murmured, a cruel smile playing on his lips. It seems you have been keeping secrets. He picked up the phone. Get me everything you can find on Eleanor Ainsworth. Everything. Stolen eavesdropping. The sinking sun stretched elongated shadows across the parched yard, bathing the barn's time-worn planks in gradients of amber and umber. Exasperated after an hour tethered to her books, Lily escaped outside, nudging pebbles with the toe of her boot. Caleb remained consumed with the fences, a permanent furrow creasing his brow. She longed for his easy smiles, the familiar twinkle in his eyes when he'd spin yarns. Near the antiquated windmill, Mr. Sterling, dapper in his city attire, paced and murmured into his phone. Lily feigned absorption with an anthill, probing the soil with a twig, yet strained to overhear his words. He inspired distrust. His gaze always lingered too long, as if deciphering a riddle. Precisely, Sterling clipped into the phone. Timing is paramount. We must amplify the pressure. The drought is advantageous, but we must expedite matters. A pause, then, the well? Correct. A temporary failure. Sufficient to demonstrate the land's unviability. Lily's stomach clenched. Unviable meant displacement. Eviction from her haven, the horses, the tadpole-filled creek. Separation from her father. He resumed, his voice deepening to a conspiratorial hush. No loose ends. I shall manage the technicalities. Simply ensure the offer's prepared. He'll be desperate enough to capitulate. He terminated the call and spun around, nearly colliding with Lily. Well, hello, Lily, he purred, forcing a smile. Appreciating the local fauna? Lily scowled, gripping the twig tighter. Just watching ants, she mumbled, pivoting away. She bolted toward the house, small dust clouds blooming behind her. a cold dread solidifying in her gut. Ellie was in the kitchen, softly humming as she worked the dough. The yeasty, warm fragrance usually soothed, but today it offered scant solace. "Ellie," she breathed, her voice fragile. Ellie ceased kneading and knelt, her brow etched with worry. "What is it, Lily? You look like you've seen a specter." Lily hesitated, uncertain how much to impart. Her trust, still fragile after her mother's passing. But Ellie felt different. A refuge. I overheard Mr. Sterling on the phone," she finally confessed. Ellie's face grew grave. "What was he saying, Lily?" "About the ranch," Lily whispered, her voice shaking. "He said they needed to render the land unsustainable. And something about the well, a breakdown. He wants Dad to sell." Ellie's hands tightened on Lily's shoulders. "Tell me everything you recall, sweetheart. Each and every word." Lily repeated the conversation, her small voice laced with trepidation and indignation. Ellie absorbed every syllable, her eyes hardening with each revelation. When Lily finished, Ellie enveloped her in a close embrace. "Thank you for confiding in me, Lily," she murmured. "You acted bravely." Lily drew back, her eyes wide with apprehension. "What will we do, Ellie? Is he really going to ruin the ranch?" Ellie rose, her gaze steely and resolute. "We won't allow it, Lily. We will uncover his scheme and put a stop to it." She strode to the window, surveying the vast expanse of the ranch, Caleb's beloved land, Lily's sanctuary. "He presumes he can coerce Caleb, but he underestimates his opposition." A spark of something fierce, something unfamiliar, flared in Ellie's gaze. The mild governess had vanished. This was someone resilient, determined. A flicker of optimism ignited within Lily's fear. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could salvage the ranch. She clung to that hope, watching Ellie strategize, her mind already racing, assembling the pieces of the puzzle Lily had unknowingly delivered. The aroma of baking bread, once a comfort, now carried the scent of a looming confrontation. Unmasking the villain. The morning sun, a brutal reminder of the Texas heat to come, cast long shadows across the barn as Ellie and Lily huddled behind a stack of hay bales. Lily, usually brimming with questions, was unusually quiet, her small face pinched with worry. "Are you sure about this, Ellie?" she whispered, clutching a small notebook and pencil. "What if he sees us?" Ellie squeezed her hand. "We'll be careful. We need proof, Lilybug. Proof no one can ignore." She adjusted the brim of her borrowed Stetson, pulling it lower over her face. It felt foreign, this cloak of secrecy, a world away from the silk scarves and polished shoes of her former life. Their plan was simple yet risky. Document everything suspicious. Lily, small and quick, would be their eyes and ears, while Ellie would handle the handling. Ellie had already familiarized herself with the ranch's layout, noting the locations of the well, the pump house, and Mr. Sterling's frequent, furtive visits. Their first stop was the well itself. The air hung thick and humid, buzzing with insects. Lily wrinkled her nose. "Smells funny," she said, pointing to a discarded burlap sack near the wellhead. It had a faint chemical odor. Ellie examined it cautiously. A dark stain marked the burlap, and the ground beneath was damp. "Smells like fertilizer," she murmured, a knot forming in her stomach. A length of rubber hose snaked away from the main pipe, disappearing into a dark corner. Ellie followed it, her heart pounding. The hose led to a large plastic container, half hidden behind some crates. The container was labeled with a warning symbol, skull and crossbones. Ellie's breath caught in her throat. Inside, a murky liquid sloshed ominously. She recognized the sickly sweet smell from the burlap sack. "Lily, I need you," she whispered, beckoning the girl inside. "But stay back." Lily cautiously approached, her eyes wide with apprehension. "What is it, Ellie?" "This," Ellie said, pointing to the container, "is what's making the water taste bad. He's poisoning the well." Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "But why?" "To make it look like the ranch is failing," Ellie explained grimly. "To force your father to sell." Lily's face hardened. The initial fear was replaced by a steely resolve. "We have to stop him." Carefully, Ellie documented everything, the container, the hose, the altered pump. Lily sketched and scribbled, her small hands working furiously. Back in the main house, under the pretense of Lily needing help with her lessons, Ellie used the ranch's landline to call the sheriff's office. Her voice trembled slightly as she reported her findings, detailing the evidence they had gathered. "I understand this sounds unbelievable," she said to the dispatcher, "but I assure you, this is a serious situation. Mr. Sterling is deliberately sabotaging the water supply." She gave the dispatcher her name, Ellie Moore, and the ranch's location, emphasizing the urgency of the matter. The dispatcher, initially skeptical, promised to send a deputy to investigate. As Ellie hung up the phone, Lily looked at her, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Do you think they'll believe us?" she asked. Ellie took a deep breath. "They have to, Lilybug. We have the proof. And sometimes," she added, her gaze hardening, "the truth is the most powerful weapon of all." The truth revealed. The dust swirled around Ellie's boots as she hurried back towards the ranch house, Lily chattering excitedly beside her. The sheriff had seemed genuinely concerned, promising to investigate Sterling's activities thoroughly. A sliver of hope pierced through the anxiety knotting her stomach. As they rounded the corner of the barn, a figure stepped out, blocking their path. Mr. Sterling, his face, usually smooth and oily, was tight with barely suppressed rage. "Well, well, Miss Moore," he drawled, his voice dripping with a venom she hadn't heard before. "Playing detective, are we?" Lily instinctively moved closer to Ellie, her small hand finding Ellie's skirt. Ellie placed a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. "Mr. Sterling, we just want what's best for the ranch." He let out a harsh, humorless laugh. "Best for the ranch? Or best for yourself, Eleanor?" The air crackled with sudden tension. Ellie's blood ran cold. "How?" "I believe the name is Ellie Moore," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, but the tremor was undeniable. His eyes narrowed, predatory. "Don't insult my intelligence. Eleanor Ainsworth, the runaway heiress. Quite a fall from grace, wouldn't you say?" Ellie's mind raced. How could he know? Had someone from her past? No, that was impossible. She'd been so careful. Before she could formulate a response, a voice boomed from behind them. "Sterling, what's going on here?" Caleb strode towards them, his brow furrowed, his eyes scanning the scene with a sharpness that made Ellie's heart clench. He'd obviously heard the tail end of their exchange. Sterling's demeanor shifted, regaining a veneer of civility, but the underlying malice remained. "Just having a little chat with Miss Moore, Caleb. Seems she's been keeping secrets." He turned his gaze back to Ellie, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Wouldn't you agree, Eleanor?" The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Lily looked from Ellie to Sterling to her father, her eyes wide with confusion and a growing fear. Caleb's gaze snapped to Ellie, his expression unreadable. "Eleanor? What is he talking about?" Ellie swallowed hard. This was it. The carefully constructed facade she had built was crumbling around her. "Caleb, please, let me explain," Sterling cut her off. "Explain? I'll explain. This Ellie Moore is Eleanor Ainsworth, daughter of the late Reginald Ainsworth of Ainsworth Industries, one of the wealthiest families in the country. Ran away from her gilded cage, apparently. Thought she could play the simple country girl." He spat the words out like poison. Caleb's face was a mask of shock. His eyes, usually warm with a quiet intensity, were now hard and cold, fixed on Ellie. The color had drained from his face, leaving him looking years older. He looked like a man betrayed. Ellie reached out a hand towards him, but he flinched away as if burned. "Caleb, it's not what you think. I needed to get away. I couldn't breathe in that world. I wanted to be someone different, someone real." "Real?" Caleb's voice was low, dangerous. "You lied to me. You lied to Lily. You came into my home under false pretenses. I never meant to hurt you," Ellie pleaded, her voice cracking with emotion. "I care about you, about Lily, about this ranch. I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize that." Sterling scoffed. "Oh, I'm sure you wouldn't. Unless it suited your own purposes, of course. Maybe she was planning on buying the ranch, Caleb. A little project for the heiress to dabble in." "That's not true," Ellie cried, turning on Sterling, her anger finally boiling over. "You're the one who's been trying to destroy this ranch, not me. I have proof that you poisoned the well." Sterling merely chuckled. "Desperate accusations, Miss Ainsworth. Hardly surprising." Caleb stood frozen, his eyes darting between Ellie and Sterling, his mind clearly reeling from the revelations. The trust that had slowly built between them was now shattered, lying in pieces at their feet. Lily, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, began to cry, burying her face in Caleb's leg. He instinctively wrapped an arm around her, but his gaze remained fixed on Ellie, filled with a mixture of hurt, anger, and disbelief. I can explain everything, Caleb, Ellie said, her voice barely a whisper. Please, just give me a chance. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he scooped Lily up into his arms and turned away, walking towards the house. He didn't look back. Ellie stood alone in the swirling dust, the weight of her past crashing down on her. The truth was out, and it had destroyed everything she had worked so hard to build. A matter of trust. The kicked-up dust still clouded the air long after Caleb's departure, a visual echo of the heavy quiet he left behind. Ellie followed his retreating figure with her gaze, the smallness of Lily's hand lost within his own as a renewed sense of loss crashed over her. She gambled everything, the delicate connection they shared, the life she'd only just begun to shape. Wheeling around, she found Sterling observing her, a loathsome smirk twisting his features. He could wait. Caleb deserved the truth. She found him near the barn, attacking a damaged fence rail with frantic energy. Lily was absent. He offered no acknowledgement, the hammer's insistent ring against the metal forming an intentional barrier. Caleb, she began, her voice wavering despite her best efforts. Please hear me out. The hammering ceased, though he remained turned away, his posture stiff. Hear what, Eleanor? How easily you betrayed us. How casually we were used. The accusation was a blow. No, that's not what happened. Lily matters to me. This ranch matters to me. She edged closer, her hand reaching out then faltering, a memory of his earlier dismissal holding her back. I came here seeking refuge, a haven from a life that was choking me. Your advertisement, it resonated. I knew I could be of use, and I wanted to be desperately. He finally faced her, his gaze flinty, the tenderness she'd witnessed now absent. Help? By fabricating a persona? By building a life on lies. It wasn't about deceit. It was about transformation, about becoming authentic. Eleanor Ainsworth is a gilded trap. Ellie Moore, she discovered freedom. Freedom to do what, exactly? To waltz in, play at domesticity, and vanish when the novelty wore off. No, I wasn't planning to leave. I want to stay. I adore Lily, Caleb. She's become my world. Tears stung her eyes. And this ranch, it's given me purpose. A reason for each new dawn. His jaw clenched. He glanced away toward the endless horizon of the Texas plains. Purpose? You possessed every advantage. You could have bankrolled this entire operation. Why this elaborate pretense? Because it would have been hollow. Unearned. I long to build something tangible to contribute with my own effort, not just a signature on a check. He studied her, a glint of something indecipherable in his gaze. So, the stories of hardship, of needing employment, all a fiction? Yes, she confessed, heat rising in her cheeks. But my work, the countless hours, the devotion to Lily, every ounce of that was genuine. Silence settled between them, punctuated only by the faraway cry of a hawk riding the thermals. Caleb raked a hand through his hair, his expression a tangle of emotions. I don't know what to believe anymore, Eleanor. Or Ellie. Or whoever you truly are. The sound of an engine cut through the moment. A sheriff's cruiser rolled to a stop near the main house. Sheriff Brody emerged, his face etched with gravity. Mr. Sterling, his voice carried across the yard. I need you to accompany me. We have reason to suspect your involvement in questionable land dealings in this county. Sterling, who had been leaning against his vehicle, radiating smugness, straightened abruptly, his color draining away. What? This is absurd. I haven't committed any crime. That's for the courts to determine, Sheriff Brody responded, producing restraints. Turn around, please. As Sterling was cuffed and escorted toward the cruiser, he shot a look of pure venom at Ellie. This isn't finished, Ainsworth. You'll regret this. Ellie watched him depart, a small measure of triumph battling the immense burden of her own actions. At least she'd managed to expose his machinations before they fully succeeded. After the cruiser departed, Caleb turned back to face Ellie, his gaze probing. He was attempting to defraud us. Yes, Ellie verified. He's been acquiring properties at unfairly low valuations using coercive tactics and legal gray areas. Caleb exhaled slowly. So, you were aware of this? I suspected it. That's why I asked pointed questions, sought evidence. My intention was never to harm you or Lily, Caleb. Only to safeguard you. He stood silent for a beat before speaking, his tone softened yet laced with uncertainty. Safeguard us? Or protect your own interests? The question lingered, a testament to broken trust, stubbornly unresolved. Home is where the heart is. The suitcase's aged hide felt abrasive against Ellie's trembling fingertips. She meticulously arranged her meager wardrobe inside, each fold a painful echo of the life she was, yet again, abandoning. This time, though, the escape wasn't from the gilded cage of Ainsworth Manor, but from a place that had begun to resonate as home. A home, Caleb had declared, built on falsehoods. He wasn't wrong. The room's air hung heavy, thick with suppressed grief. Outside, the double diamond held its breath, preternaturally still. The ranch's usual vibrant soundscape, the basso profundo of cattle and the wind's airy song through the cottonwoods, was eerily muted, distant. Even the sun played hide-and-seek behind a somber scrim of clouds, mirroring her inner turmoil. She hesitated, her fingers hovering above Lily's well-loved copy of Little Women. The book, a patchwork of dog-eared pages and chocolate smudges, stood as a tangible symbol of their bond. Could she truly sever it? The thought was a physical blow, a coiling ache in her stomach. A gentle rap echoed at the door. Ellie didn't raise her head. "Come in," she managed, her voice constricted. Lily stood framed in the doorway, her small face a landscape of tear tracks. Usually sparkling with impish delight, her eyes were now swollen and rimmed with red. She hugged a threadbare stuffed horse to her chest, its mane a ravaged tangle, patches of fur long gone. "Are you really going, Ellie?" Her voice was a mere breath. Ellie knelt, meeting Lily's desolate gaze. "Sweetheart, she groped for words that wouldn't utterly devastate the child. "Things are complicated, honey. But I don't want you to." Lily launched herself forward, burrowing her face in Ellie's shoulder, her small frame shuddering with unchecked sobs. "I love you, Ellie. You're the best governess ever. Please don't leave me." Ellie clung to Lily, her own carefully dammed tears finally breaching. How could she articulate the intricate web of deceit to this innocent soul? How could she confess that the woman Lily cherished was a fabrication, a runaway heiress masquerading as something she wasn't? "I love you too, Lilybug," she murmured, stroking the child's hair. "More than words can say." "Then why leave?" Lily drew back, her gaze probing Ellie's face. "Is it Daddy? Did he make you?" Ellie faltered. The unvarnished truth was a jagged pill, but Lily deserved candor regardless of the sting. "Your daddy is upset. He doesn't trust me anymore." Lily's features crumpled. "But he's wrong. You wouldn't hurt us." "I know it." A painful knot tightened in Ellie's throat. I need to go. It's for the best, really." Lily shook her head vehemently, tears cascading freely. "No, it isn't. Please, Ellie, please stay. I'll be so good. I promise I'll do my chores and never ask for treats, and you can even braid my hair every day. Just please, don't leave me alone again." The sheer desperation in Lily's plea ripped at Ellie's resolve. She knew too well the sting of loneliness, the ache of abandonment. She couldn't inflict that on Lily. Before Ellie could formulate a response, a looming shadow darkened the doorway. Caleb stood there, his face a canvas of exhaustion that ran deeper than mere physical labor. His jaw was set, his eyes guarded, yet a flicker of something else, something indecipherable, resided there. He looked from Ellie to Lily, his expression softening as he registered Lily's tear-streaked face. He knelt, enfolding Lily in his arms. "Hey, Peanut," he murmured, his voice a calming balm. "What's all the commotion about?" Lily clung to him, her sobs gradually diminishing. "Ellie's leaving, Daddy. She's going away forever." Caleb's gaze locked with Ellie's, a silent inquiry passing between them. He rose, drawing Ellie away from Lily, further into the corridor. "Can we talk? Alone?" His voice was gravelly, almost pleading. Ellie nodded, her heart hammering against her ribs. She followed him onto the porch, the time-worn planks groaning under their weight. Caleb leaned against the railing, gazing out at the sprawling Texas vista. The cloud cover had begun to dissipate, and a shard of sunlight pierced through, gilding the rolling hills. "Lily's right," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I was wrong. Blinded by anger, hurt. I let it cloud my judgment." Ellie remained silent, anticipating his next words. "You lied, Ellie. About a great many things. And it stung. But I've been doing some soul-searching. About you, about Lily, about us." He turned, his eyes searching hers. "Those lies don't negate who you are, what you've brought to this place." He closed the distance between them, his gaze unwavering. "You breathe life back into this ranch, Ellie. You've given Lily something invaluable, companionship, guidance, someone to admire. And you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever." He reached out, framing her face with his calloused hands. "I was so fixated on the Ainsworth legacy that I almost overlooked what was right here. Your origins don't define you, Ellie. Your actions do. And I think I'm falling in love with who you are." Ellie's breath hitched. "Caleb? Stay," he urged, his voice thick with emotion. "Stay here with Lily, with me. Let's forge a life together. A true one, built not on subterfuge and prevarication, but on openness and faith. Let me cherish you, Ellie. Let us become a family. He lowered his head, his lips brushing against hers. Home isn't a place, Ellie. It's a feeling. And my heart resides right here with you.